Hello and welcome. My name is Peter. I'm the sole developer behind Growler Games. For this video, we're going to talk about the last few weeks and how I've begun expanding on some of the systems within the game and expanding the game in general, because I want to get to a point where I can have a larger alpha test that shows off the core game loop as well as kind of emulates what I have in mind for the demo, so I can get some feedback as I start getting prepared to do a demo in the future. At the end of this video, I'm also going to quickly go over the alpha test itself, when I'm thinking to potentially have it, and how you could join. So let's get to it. And one of the more time-consuming things I've done since my last devlog was simply designing and blocking out the main areas within Blood Builder. So recreating a couple of the levels that I had to redo, and then making new ones that I haven't done at all. Now all of these are subject to change, and a few areas are a little rougher than others. Primarily areas that I don't intend including within the demo. For instance, the village, it's pretty well blocked out, but there's some details here and there that are pretty rough as I'm kind of seeing it firsthand and redesigning things while I'm playing around with what might work, what might not work in my head. But I wanted to spend some time putting it together so that I can really start to see and feel what the experience is once everything is put together in game, like what navigating feels like when you're going from the exterior of the castle to the exterior of the inn, to getting down to the speakeasy, and then navigating back out to the forest, and then going back down to the village. That's sort of like how long is it? Is the content in between interesting enough that I'm not getting too bored? Now, there may be some alternate ways of transport later on, but for the most part, players are going to be walking from one area to another, and so I just want to make sure that it feels, it can't be too quick, but it can't be too long. Just all of that, just getting the game feel. Now, I also did it because I was hitting a little bit of a slump. Where motivation, wasn't as high as usual. And so I thought that pivoting to blockouts, which, they're time consuming, but, it's not rigorous. It's mostly, tile maps. And then it has sprinkling some details on top to, make the map feel a little more alive. I thought that it might help inspire me. And for the most part, it did. For the most part, it worked. It made the whole game feel more alive, made it feel more complete. Now there's a ton more work to do, but having the levels exist makes the game feel more real, and all I have to do is fill it with content. No big deal. The most exciting thing I worked on, at least for me in the last few weeks, was finishing the procedural generation of the Dark Forest. In my last video, I discussed the design and setup for it, but this past week I finished implementing the actual generation and assembly of the tiles or zones within the Dark Forest Depths, which is the dungeon within the game. I've also been looking for opportunities to use more C#. It's a language that is probably my favorite language. It's the one I used for a long time. But for Godot, I do most of the stuff in GDScript. It's fast, it's easy, I can get it done. But this was something that was slightly more logic, and it's not intensive, but it was slightly more logic based, and I wanted to use multi-dimensional arrays that were typed, which GDScript doesn't support a typed multi-dimensional array. So anyways, good excuse to use C#, which is one of the reasons I was excited about it. And to implement the actual setup, I used a simple algorithm. It's very simple. It's called the random walk or the drunkard's walk. And basically, you start off at it on a particular tile within a grid, and it just randomly chooses a direction to move in. And then it marks that it was there, and then it chooses the next tile and it moves to the next adjacent tile, and so on and so on. And then I run that multiple times to get a more, to fill it out, to get a larger dungeon, because everywhere that the walk lands on is going to end up being a room within the dungeon, and everything else will be empty. Now, after I run that a few times and get a collection of tiles that are going to be the rooms within the dungeon, I then go through them and determine how they connect to the tiles adjacent to them that were also walked through. So you check, neighbor to your left, below you, above you, to the right, and what I do is I mark them with bit flags. So 1, 2, 4, and 8 to determine where the connections were to their neighbors. Now, if you're not familiar with bit flags, it's a little technical, but essentially I'm just using the data type. Usually you'd use something like an int or a short, and you just flip the bits within that data type to signify true or false. With that, the reason to do that is, one, you can save on memory because you don't have to do a whole bunch of bools. You can pack it into just a simple short or something, depending on how many bits you want. And the other reason is it can be far more readable. So in my case, instead of having a whole bunch of true false, a whole bunch of bools, which then I would have to have these long true false things. Are you connected to your left neighbor, your right neighbor, the bottom, the top, and then a bunch of if else statements. I can simply just check the result. Are you equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. In my case, with the 4, using 1, 2, 4, and 8, the maximum value is 15. And so I just check the value, because by flipping the bits, each result is unique. So 1, for instance, is always going to be, I'm only connected to the person to my left, right? And if you're connected to all of them, if you flip all 1, 2, 4, and 8, you add them up, you get 15. So I'm just flipping the bits and then adding the results to get what the unique tile type is in comparison to how it connects to its neighbors. And like I said, the reason I did it is it's far more readable, and it's also less error prone, because I could easily, when doing all the if statements and checking all the bools, forget to check a certain condition, right? It would be just a jumble of typed words and stuff versus just a switch that just runs through a set of numbers and selects the number that matches the value of the tile. Anyways, once I determine the type necessary based on its connections, I store it all in an array. And then when the Dark Forest depths are first loaded, the GD script side of things, the Godot side of things, reaches out to the C# and requests that the values in that array, and it actually assembles the tiles visually so that you can navigate in the dungeon. Still needs some refinement, such as adding some additional parameters on the random walk. I want to make sure there's a minimum amount of rooms in case, because the way the algorithm works in its most simple state, it just randomly selects, so it could just keep walking over previous places it's already been. I could put conditions on it where it can't go backwards if I wanted to, but that's something I need to figure out exactly how I want that to be refined a bit. And I also want to increase the amount of dead ends, because the rooms that are kind of on the end, whether it be on the left, the top, right at the bottom, right, since there's no other connection, there's more space to play around in, and so those tend to be where you find some of the better kind of loot rooms, we'll say. And so, yeah, it needs to be refined, but it is all set up. It runs through, it generates the room types, determines the connections, and then assembles the pieces so that you can actually go in and navigate them. And so that was pretty fun to get all put together. Just it was a little more. A little different than a lot what I've been doing for some of the gameplay aspects in the past for this project so far. So always exciting to take on a new challenge. The last thing I worked on was adding to the craftable workstations and items in the game. I'd previously created most of the basic workstations in the game and placed them in a level to test them. However, only the workbench could be built and placed from the construction table. So I added all of the basic workstations to a list of recipes for the construction table so I could test building, placing, and using each one. And I even got in moving them after they've been built. There'll be some more features as well, but for now I snuck in the ability to select an already constructed workstation and then relocate it to a different place within the work area. Along the way, I made some updates to the data structures for craftable items so that everything better utilized inheritance, so I wasn't duplicating my efforts. And I also set it up in such a way that the workstations can support multiple recipes for the same item. For instance, a bar of steel can be crafted with 2 iron ore and a piece of coal, or with 1 iron bar and 1 piece of coal. And so that the way that I've set it up, it will support recipes like that, where you can do multiple things to get the same item out. I also made it so that the tools were craftable, which previously I hadn't had. To test them, I just put them into a chest and picked them out and then used them. But now, it was a quick change. But now you're able to actually go and craft the basic. Right now it's just the copper tools, so you can craft the copper tools and upgrade from the rusty old ones that you get at the beginning of the game, which is the way it works. You're gonna receive the rusty old tools that are just laying around so that you can get started, and the first upgrade will be to copper. And so that's now in the game, which is important. Because with all of this done, like the UI elements and feedback of it still leave a lot to be desired. They need a lot of work. But as I'm gearing up for players being able to experience a slice of the game in the alpha tests that I'm hoping to have early next year, all of these expanded and added features for crafting now make it possible to start a game and work towards building and upgrading in a way that you would expect for something in this genre. Speaking of the alpha test that's planned for early next year, I do want to plug the email list for Growlery Games. The link to subscribe is in the description. Once a month, I send out an email to the subscribers, just giving a little more insight into either the game I'm working on or the studio in general. Typically, I focus on the current game, and it's a way to build community, to get some direct connection between myself and those in the audience who want to be a little more involved, want to show a little more support. It's not a Patreon grab or anything like that. There's no cost associated. I have a privacy policy. Read it over. I don't share your information with anybody. This is really just about that direct connection between myself and those who want to be a bigger part in the story of Growlery Games. Now, the reason I'm plugging it now is because talking about that alpha test, this is how I distribute codes for anybody that wants to participate in a alpha or beta test now or in the future. For those who are already in the email list, thank you. And you will receive a code for the upcoming alpha test as you have in the past. And for those who are interested in participating, signing up for the email list is how you get a code. I send a code out for everybody who's in the email list for any private alpha and beta tests going on. And for this first alpha test, I mean, it's going to have a little bit of everything. You're going to be able to collect resources and craft and build and farm and create some food to serve to guests, and even be able to interact with a couple of NPCs, Albert and Anna, who I introduced elsewhere in the past. They're the Dracula's servants, and so they're the key people that you're going to be interacting with. So they'll have a little bit of dialogue. I got to work on that a little bit more before the alpha test of what exactly the interactions are going to be. But you'll get a taste of what that's like. And the reason that this early alpha test is pretty important is because it's the first broad feedback I'm getting for the game. And what's going to be in there is going to be very reminiscent of what I have in mind for the demo. So it's going to help me in developing the demo down the line, but also because it's the first real broad feedback, it's going to help with the game in general, with giving it some direction. Now, obviously, I get a little bit of feedback through these videos, and I've shown the game to people, but this is the first time where multiple people are going to be able to go unrestricted, play around, and then let me know what they think. So these early alpha tests are essential. I encourage you, if you're interested at all, please sign up. And again, thank you for anybody who has already been signed up to the email list and participated in previous alpha and beta tests for Risk and Riches. But that's what we got for this one. A little shorter than usual, which ain't a bad thing. I do want to say, because it's the last video before the end of the year, right? Happy holidays! Enjoy the new year for any celebrations that you might have. Again, my name's Peter. I'm the sole developer behind Growlery Games. I usually do a video a month, documenting the current projects I'm working on and the progress of my studio. And I will see you in 2026. Have a great new year.